Okay.
Yeah, hello all together with week 1 after the SQLBits, the life-changing SQLBits conference in terms of version control. Matthias will tell more about it. Hello everyone. Hello Erin and Donald. Donald, hey Donald. Yeah, these two are logged in on StreamYard right now. Maybe we can do a Q&A afterwards. But today we have, besides, of course, I hope some hot new stuff from Power BI tools. We have the honor to have James here, and James created an external tool on the basis of Power BI tools. So Matthias and myself were like talking about, oh, Power BI tools is so useful. So there must be someone who can wrap this up into an external tool and create a usability for some part of the Power BI tools. So Power BI tools are very mighty, and this is just one feature of it. But yeah, James, you can start, I think, and
Sure.
then we can go on with Matthias.
I can kind of, I'll go into present mode here. Share my screen. Let's see here. Okay, I'll apologize for the resolution. But probably it won't be too much of a problem because we're really only showing off. I've got a Power BI desktop file open here. I have it called the_matrix.pbix. I have it saved in this folder here. And in my external tools tab on the ribbon, I'm going to click the pbi-tools:watch button, which will launch a PowerShell window, Windows PowerShell, and it says extracting sources from this file. As soon as I make a save on here, so if I just click the save button, PBI tools will take over and it will start extracting all of the files from there, and it will drop them into this new folder that it just created called the_matrix. And inside here are all of the files associated with that project. And so from here, now I've basically saved those changes, and I can close Power BI Desktop here. And once Power BI Desktop is closed, PBI Tools says, the Power BI Desktop session is ended, so it says stopping watch mode, and now I can close the that PowerShell window. And if this is in a Git repository, I could then go and make a commit with a message saying what changes I had made.
Yeah, great stuff and easy to explain.
This is basically the source code here. So this is just a pbi-tool.json file, and this is basically you drop a copy of this file in your C:\program files x86 common files Microsoft shared Power BI Desktop external tools folder, and relaunch Power BI Desktop after putting it there. And then what that button does, all it does is it launches Windows PowerShell, and it passes these arguments to that PowerShell. So basically telling it no logo means, have it not say PowerShell version number, copyright year, blah, 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 all that stuff at the beginning. Execution policy bypass, that allows it to run everything here, regardless of whatever the normal execution policy you have on your machine for PowerShell scripts. And no exit basically tells it at the very end, we want it to say, yes, we observed that Power BI Desktop was closed, and you can go ahead and close it. We want to kind of leave that there to let the user know that it's safe to close the window. And then here it says the command. And at this point, it passes in all this stuff here. And of course, I've got a lot of backslashes here, escaping characters. But essentially what this is doing is it's saying it goes and gets the, it uses the get sim instance or CIM instance commandlet in PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, to get the current process ID for Power BI Desktop. And so by doing that, it should return the current process of Power BI Desktop, and then that's what the PID is what PBI Tools extract needs to connect to that current session and connect to the current file that whatever you have open currently. So I don't know if that was that was a bit of a rambling explanation, but I hope that kind of demonstrated. Really, this tool is not doing hardly anything at all. All it's doing is saying here let's open a PowerShell window and let's run pbi-tools in watch mode on the current pbix file, and then extract the files into a folder in the same folder where that pbix file is stored, and save the JSON files there. So yeah, that's really all it's doing.
Yeah, and it is really that easy. So just to save this JSON into the folder where all the external tools are located, and then you have this small little button. So it's, I think, compared to the normal watch mode, it's just a little button, which is the extra. But as we all know, at some point adoption starts with buttons with accessibility, and me for myself, I find the watch mode is extremely useful, and now you can just trigger it from the Power BI desktop file itself, so nobody forgets it. Nobody is too lazy to open the PowerShell besides developing, and everything can be tracked. Nice.
And to make sure that you don't accidentally run it on the wrong pbix file too. So if you're working on one file and there's another one with a very similar name, it'll make sure you don't accidentally type the wrong one. It prevents you from, some developers, especially in a team environment, some developers might say, oh, I'm going to put the output in a special folder versus the one that's just the same name as it. So if you want to make sure everybody's standardized around the same storage location and folder structure and all that kind of stuff, using something like this makes it so that no matter what, everybody is doing exactly the same thing. And then when two people work on the same file, it will always output the source code in the same way for everyone. So that I think is one of the better or one of the bigger advantages of using something like this, where it just kind of standardizes no matter who's on your team. If you use this to launch pbi-tools, it will always be done the same way for everyone.
Yeah, another great point. So standards are effective when they're easy to apply, and you don't have to take
so here
care.
I'll stop sharing my screen unless somebody else wanted to
no problem.
Right.
So I told you off screen, I did the same. There's some trouble with the path, so maybe if it happens, you can contact me. Maybe we can figure it out. So sometimes it doesn't seem to work right from the beginning, but I'm sure I will fix it. So it's no real installation. It's just copy paste, and then the tool is there. Yeah. I think this little demo was quite nice. Hello, Andrea. So lots of people watching today. And James, thanks for the link to your blog.
So I think that put it in the private chat. I'm not sure how to put that out there for everybody who's watching this on LinkedIn or other places like that.
I will do it just. That's no problem. Oh, and then okay. Donald already did. Great.
Oh,
thanks, Donald.
Thanks, Donald.
And also hello, Didier. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, James. It's a cool thing that even the community develops around other community stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Very cool. Just a question. So do you need to have pbi-tools on your path, or do you have some path hard coded in your manifest?
It has to be in your path. So
right.
I think that when you use the installer, doesn't that automatically put it in your path?
There's no installer right now.
Oh, there isn't an installer. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So in order to get this to work, people need to do three things, right? They need to have pbi-tools downloaded. They need to have pbi-tools on the path, and then they need to get your manifest and put the manifest into the install.
Okay. I will need to go and edit my blog post, because I guess it's been a while since I actually downloaded it, and I did not realize that it doesn't do an installer. It just gives you an executable. So I'll need to make sure I put a note in there about adding the pbi-tools binary path, the path to that binary to the user's path.
There may well be an installer someday, but that's not a priority for me right now. But there is a pbi-tools getting started tutorial which clearly explains how to actually add something to the path.
Awesome.
But just putting it out there, because that could definitely be a hurdle for someone trying to, try this out and then wondering, why it's not working or so. But yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Very excited to see other people building things on top of your own tool, right?
My Thinkers Talk mate, Markus Wegener, he also built like a tool to copy pages with bookmarks, but it's not really to deploy for someone else. It's more like a PowerShell script and not deployable like the one from James. Even if I think it shouldn't be that hard, but yeah, there are different use cases of the great tools, and it's great to see it. That so much develops around it. Okay, thanks a lot, James, and happy birthday. I think
thank
this
you.
It's your birthday today.
Yeah, it is.
Oh wow! Happy birthday!
Thank you.
I'm sorry I have to spend it with us.
That's no.
That's all right. I took the day off of work today. I said I told my boss, I was like, I'm going to take the day off of work to mourn my misspent youth, and but I wanted to make sure I took some time to hang out with you guys today and talk about this. It's something I do in my spare time, whether I'm at work or not. So
it's an honor for us. Yes, great. Thanks a lot, and here's some cake from Donald. And of course, you can stay with
Thanks,
us as the other guys. And now, Matthias, how was it? SQLBits, you've been all days.
Is always an event that you think about for a while, right? They really put on a great show there. If you listen to Mike Carter's podcast with Tommy and Seth earlier today, Explicit Measures, Mike and Tommy were talking about it because they were both here. And yeah, I mean, Mike in particular was so enthusiastic, just pointing out how he had never been, to a geek data conference that was so well organized and had such a fun party and all of that. I totally agree with that. Every year you go to Bits, it gets better. It was in a slightly unusual location. Some international travelers definitely struggled getting there, particularly since we had various train strikes and whatnot in the country. So it was not quite as easy to get there than last year, for instance, where it was just central London. But once you got there, it really paid off. It was a very nice venue. And everything, loads of people, great chats, lots of networking, loads of sessions, high quality stuff, fantastic party. No reason not to go, really.
And next year I will be self-employed. I have no more excuse not to go.
Yeah, so there was a small announcement.
Yeah, you're free to tell. I think it was one of the last days, or especially for me watching.
No, it was Friday. It was Friday morning.
Yeah.
I was somehow involved in that. So it was a great honor, a fantastic opportunity. In fact, it was the very first SQLBits I ever presented at, actually. I'd only ever been an attendee prior to that. And yeah, it was definitely quite something, in retrospect, because we created quite a bit of social media buzz, and so quite fun to look at. So,
okay. So you're free to
I'm
go,
more than happy to talk about the announcement a little bit if you want.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a lot of people are waiting for.
That's the real reason I'm here.
Right. I want to do
always the share the screen game, and then
it says Right. Can you see PowerShell window?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Very good. I'm going to show the same demo we showed at Bits. Let me just go here. I'm slightly unprepared, I'm afraid, because I was stuck in another call literally till the minute before this. So I just want to change the theme. What's the shortcut again for what's it called? I want to switch to light mode. Why am I being? Oh, here, there we go. That's much better. Hopefully you can see better. And let's just make it a little bigger. Right. Okay. So what did we show? We showed TMDL, TMDL, which is a whole new language that ships as part of Power BI, specifically as part of TOM, the tabular object model. And it's a language that you use to define Power BI model metadata in a code first experience, basically. So this is an alternative to JSON or TMSL, right? TMSL, the tabular model scripting language. We're now going from TMSL to TMDL. Why a new language? Because obviously, that brings, that requires new tooling, that requires people to learn syntax and all of that. So it's not cheap, right? It's not easy to just decide a new language is needed. But it really was needed because there are various shortcomings and limitations with where we were before, the JSON-based language. And so the overall, the top objective here was to be able to support a really good source control and collaboration story around tabular models. When it comes to source control, obviously we're talking text-based documents, where in an ideal world you're able to make small edits in a text editor without requiring some massive IDE or even Power BI desktop, and where most importantly you have a very neat way of tracking changes by looking at diffs, right? And so so that's definitely something which we've got here. And one particular complication, let's say, with TMSL and with tabular models actually is that we have a mix of different languages, right? So just looking at this, this is an M partition. So you can actually see there's a block here of M code, which is obviously part of my partition definition for my customer table in that case, right? If I go to my sales table, I also have M here, but then I have various DAX expressions like this and that. If I go to time intelligence, I've got other DAX expressions because they make up my calculation group. So, the particular challenge we have when it comes to defining tabular model metadata is we're not just concerned with objects and properties and values. We also have to account for embedded languages, basically. If we want to be in a position where we can do small edits in a text editor, we need direct access to those expressions. We can't have we can't get the language in our way, basically, right? So let me show you what this exact same model used to look like in TMSL in JSON. I can actually use a not yet released, but to be released version of pbi-tools, because pbi-tools already integrates TMSL. So if I go in here and use the pbi-tools convert command, like so, there are quite a few options here. The ones I want to point out, sorry, let me just do it again. Here. So those are the ones I want to point out. So basically, the model serialization options have changed. We now have default, raw, legacy, and Tyndall. So there are some new options in here, which means using pbi-tools, you can choose. Do you want to have, oops, that's the wrong shortcut. That's the one. Do you want to use Tyndall? Do you want to use legacy, which is basically what pbi-tools has done so far? Do you want to use raw, which basically puts everything in one single file? So that's the equivalent of BIM, basically. And if I put that to action, I can basically do convert model, and then let's say give me there we go, right. So this is a shortcut, actually, right? I've specified a model folder, which in this case happens to contain Tyndall, and I specified a BIM file name as my target or my output path, and from that pbi-tools infers automatically what I want to do, namely that I just want to convert the model aspect of my PBIX project. And I want to convert it to a single BIM file, and that's the one I've got here, right? So let's do some side-by-side comparison here. You can already see, right? So this whole thing is what, 2,086 lines of code, right? I've got everything in one file here, and then if I go to the M partition we were looking at earlier, we immediately see that this is in no way ideal with respect to readability, with respect to being able to edit things, right? We've got things broken down into a string array. We've got lots of additional characters, double quotes. We're using lots of escape characters here, right? You can even see that here we've got a special character for line break, right? So this is very far removed from how you actually think about your model, and from the fact that this happens to be M code that you actually want to look at and work with as M code, right? You can't do that. And so coming from that position, it was clear that obviously one approach to making this one more approachable for source control would be what Tabular Editor does, is to simply break it out, into multiple files. So if I go here and I open that one and find where I currently am, which is that one, right? So I'm opening that file, and then if I go, oops, not save as, but save as folder. There we go, save to folder. So let me create a new folder here called TE. Okay, so here we go. So this is one way of approaching the problem, right? We've got a folder structure now that actually has quite a few nesting levels, as you can tell, but it means that every individual file we're looking at is substantially smaller, right? So that's great, right? This is way better than looking at 2,100 lines of code or so. But we still have the issue for instance, me looking at this partition, we still haven't done anything around M. If I go to my calculation group and look at my calculation items, you can still see this is not really DAX, right? This is a JSON array with escaping and whatnot going on there. So going one step further is basically we get to Tyndall, where we're saying we have a whole new way of actually representing our model metadata, and that's what we shipped here. So Tyndall gives us two things. It gives us a format that is very lean, that is really focused on just the bare minimum I need to represent in order to have a full representation of my model, a format that is human readable, a format that can be edited, and most importantly, a format that supports for embedded expressions. DAX, JSON, M are examples, right? And then the other thing which is being shipped is what Tabular Editor does, namely a standard way, and we can see that here very nicely, to break out the various artifacts into a folder structure, so that we actually have fewer files, and so that we have fewer risk and scenarios where we could possibly have merge conflicts, right? However, the Tyndall folder structure is a lot less granular than the Tabular Editor folder structure, at least when you tick all the boxes in Tabular Editor. So as you can see, one table is fully declared in one file, right? And everything that belongs to a table, so those are partitions, measures, columns, hierarchies, annotations, is in that file, but in a consistent and repeatable order, right? So if you load a model from Tyndall, then you make some edits in another editor and you save it back to Tyndall, it is guaranteed that the order of things within a document will not change, so that it's very likely for you to get small diffs. Let's say you added a measure, you will actually see just an insertion and nothing else. So that's in a nutshell what Tyndall does, and I'm more than happy, to sort of go through the syntax a little bit here and point out a few details. I'm more than happy to talk about, at least with respect to what I can say, what's coming, but there may be some questions at this point, so I'm happy to take a break here.
Yes, there was a question from Didier about if there is any specification published already. I didn't find anything.
Yeah, that's by far the most asked question right now. So we were very keen, and maybe I should also explain how I got into this, right? So I worked with the product team in Microsoft as part of their contributor program. So that's how I got involved here, right? So this is a community contribution where we've had lots of inputs from Daniel and Marco, for instance, but also where the stuff that I had done around pbi-tools obviously was quite useful, because I've always aimed and wanted to solve those kinds of problems. So that's why that's how I got involved here. And we were very keen to actually take the opportunity to present this at SQLBits. As I've just shown, it does work, right? So, I mean, in fact, I've got a whole automated CI/CD pipeline set up here, which I'll show in a minute. But we're not quite there yet in terms of, actually making the bits available. Just because there was a lot of, stressful last-minute work necessary. Things need to be documented. Things need to be reviewed. But I can say that it will happen soon. In that, some more official announcements will come, and also a preview version of Tom will ship that anyone can use, and basically use all the Tyndall serialization and deserialization features in their own applications. We've got full commitment from Daniel to put this into Tabular Editor as soon as possible. So when Tabular Editor today allows you to save to folder, in the future, Tabular Editor save to folder will save to Tyndall instead of a broken out JSON file. And pbi-tools, same, right? You've seen I'm already using a internal build of pbi-tools that's fully integrated with Tyndall. I'm going to ship that as soon as the Microsoft announcements are out there. So sorry,
Great.
but stay tuned and be patient.
You answered quite well. So this is, I think, the second most, the second hottest presentation after the one in the SQLBits, and yeah, very honored to have the chance to see it in such a stadium where it's not already official, but it's
Any
like
other questions?
No, not yet.
Okay, all right, very good.
You can go on.
So let's talk about the syntax a little bit, if you're interested. So let's go back to customer, and also let me show you two things here. So first of all, something I'm very excited about. Look at this. Look at that. I'm in VS Code, but it knows I'm actually. Excuse the typo there. I thought we had fixed that. It knows I'm actually in Tyndall in tabular model definition language mode. So the other thing which we're shipping is a VS Code extension, a VS Code language extension, which actually gives us full language support, which is also why we get some nice color coding here. So that's coming, and that's going to be an open source project hosted by Microsoft, but it will invite community contributions. Super excited. Is a really powerful message as well, right? And the other thing is because the Tyndall syntax borrows heavily from YAML, as you may have noticed. Which means there is significant, which means indentation in white space is actually significant. We get certain features for free. So for instance, VS Code, as you can see, automatically knows that we have, we've got a structure here and that we have logical blocks simply from looking at indentation, right? Which also means I can do something like that. I can use VS Code shortcuts, which allow me to actually collapse and expand certain indentation levels, right? So if I then collapse everything and then expand it again level by level, I've got a really nice view, in this case, of everything that's in my customer table, which is one partition and a bunch of columns. There we go. And that's it. Makes complete sense. And hopefully the entire syntax is very intuitive. If I open up one particular column, you can see a column is an object. Objects have properties, right? We've got data type string, source column city, summarized by none. This is the auto summarization, right? Data category cities. Those are hopefully names and keywords that people are familiar to some people if you've used with Tom, if you used Tom before. The model is that any property which has its default value is not emitted, right? So brevity and concise output was really keen. columns, for instance, I think in total they have 60 or so different properties, maybe 40. They're not all specified here. Why? Because all the others have their default value. So there's no need to specify them, right? Only the ones that in this particular case, right, source column city, obviously that is something that needs to be specified. So that's one design principle. And then the other one is around nesting, right? Everything in Tom is highly hierarchical. So we've got the model at the top. Underneath the model, we've got various tables. Underneath the table, we've got partitions, columns. And underneath columns, we've got, for instance, annotations and other child objects, right? So whenever in Tom something is nested in a hierarchy, it means that in Tyndall, it's also nested with respect to how we're actually representing it. Hopefully that makes it very sort of intuitive and easy to read. And once again, what I said before, if you read a Tyndall project and then you save it back, it's guaranteed that you're always going to get a consistent order. For instance, for properties, just look at those. By default, they're always going to be admitted alphabetically. That way, it's completely predetermined, consistent, and makes it a lot less likely that between changes, you're going to get arbitrary git diffs only because some stuff has sort of randomly moved around. That's in the spec and is guaranteed to not happen. The other thing I want to point out, because also that's something we didn't mention to show during the demo, is this. So I just talked about the importance of indentation, right? I also talked about nested expressions. So M as an example, right? So now we do want to support a code-first editing experience. So we do want to support that people go in and make small edits to their M or DAX code, right? Now, if Tyndall were very strict with respect to indentation, that could actually be quite difficult, right? Because it could be problematic if you wanted to copy paste snippets of expressions from one document to another. If those then weren't at the right indentation level, you could easily get into trouble. For that very reason, when it comes to expressions, indentation is not enforced. So this document, if it looked like that, if I had copied this M code in here like that, it is still completely valid. It doesn't change anything with respect to how this can be passed. It would not be spit out like that because by default it's always prettified when we're serializing it. But you can make edits and they will they will be imported accurately. And then the other thing is, let's just look at this expression, right? So this is my customer table. Remember, I actually converted this to a BIM earlier, right? So if we go to table customer partition and look at that, look at this. So this is actually what the model looks like in BIM. What do you see? In my original document, which I started from, I had a lot of indentation for that expression, right? Here I don't. So that indentation is only for readability. It is emitted when I'm serializing, and it's removed when I deserialize, which means I always have the best of both, right? I got nicely readable documents in my Tyndall, hence in source control. But I don't then leak, indentation that comes from just from readability into my model itself. I don't suddenly end up having all my DAX expressions heavily indented when I happen to look at them in Tableau Editor or in Power BI Desktop or so, right? So that's another feature. yeah, I mean, I can prove that that's how it works. So let's just take this one as an example, right? I'm gonna leave some indentation here, but I'm gonna otherwise change it from the from the default we had earlier, right? If we look at why is it not openness? Here we go. Right. So if we look here and change this to a folder view, so we can ignore that one. Right. So we can see, right, the only change I've made for my entire model is actually indentation for this, right? Nothing else has changed. So if I go back and convert that back, let's do demo 2 this time, right? Just so you believe me, it really is a new export, right? Here we go. So I've now converted it from that modified file. If I go in here and I open demo 2, there we go, that's the one. And then I go to tables, customer partition, there we go, no indentation, right? And again, the same applies to DAX and everything else. So if I go to my calculation group, here we go, nothing's indented, even though in my Timnit document it is indented. Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Any more questions?
Yeah, yes, there are some great questions. Also, appreciation from Mike and from Donald. Great stuff. And then Didier is asking if there is a way to compile it back to the file in a supported way.
Will it be possible to import files after modification into the model in a supported way? To import files after modification into the model in a supported way. So, okay, let's be really clear, right? I've just used pbi-tools here. I'm not showing a pbi-tools feature. I'm showing a Microsoft feature, right? So everything I've just shown ships as part of Microsoft's Tom libraries, which will have a new serializer for Tyndall. And that one allows you to construct an in-memory model from a Tyndall project, and it allows you to serialize an in-memory model back into your file system. So the only thing that pbi-tools does here is to use those new libraries to give me a way to use that functionality. But I'm not showing a pbi-tools feature at all. I'm showing what Microsoft is shipping as part of Tom. And yes, if you are asking about bringing that back into PBIX, maybe that was the question, then the answer would have to be no, I'm afraid. So that, you know, sort of bringing offline changes into PBX file is still not supported. You know, that's not in scope. We're strictly looking at tabular models. We're strictly looking at what happens between, let's say, tabular editor and your source control system and your analysis services or your Power BI Premium workspace that you deploy to using XMLA, right? So those are the components we're dealing with here. That's the scope, right? So Mike is saying not supported, but yes, it's possible, but it's not Microsoft supported, right? So it's been possible for a long time for anyone, you know, happy to use pbi-tools, obviously. But for the time being, there's no change here. What is changing is that first of all, when previously pbi-tools was using its own folder output format, that happened to be somehow different from what Tabular Editor does. That will change because now any external tool, including pbi-tools and Tabular Editor, and hopefully many others, will be able to just use the Microsoft provided Tyndall format. So that's changing. It's also changing that you're going to be able to read and write those files using any external tool, using Microsoft supported libraries, right? Other things may be desired, but I'm not at liberty to talk about anything else. So just to show what this whole bit looks like end to end, I've got a demo repo set up here, which actually has the exact same model in it what we've just looked at. So we can see right here, I've got my TMD files, expressions, relationships. I've got my various tables, including customer. We looked at before. Obviously, there's no syntax highlighting here because it's Azure DevOps. That one doesn't know about Tyndall. So I've got that, and I've got it also set up with pbi-tools deployments, which, by the way, are fully supported, right? pbi-tools deployments for models only use public APIs, and they are fully supported. What is not supported is pbi-tools compiling a PBIX file, just to be really clear here. So what do I have set up here? I've basically got a model definition using Tyndall format, right? I've got a pbi-tools deployment manifest called Contoso, where I'm using a dataset deployment with a folder source coming from my model subfolder, right? And I've got refresh set up here. I've got various parameters which are replaced during deployment. In this particular case, I'm actually leveraging Azure DevOps built-in variables so that I can inject things like build ID and source branch and whatnot, right? And then I've got 3 different environments defined: development, UAT, production, and that will show us in a second how we can go end to end from making some manual changes in Tyndall files into the source control system, and then via CI/CD triggers into a Power BI workspace where my model resides and will automatically get updates once I push something. So let's do that. Right. Let's think about what I may want to change here. Let me. Okay. Let's do something really lame, right? I'm just going to do a hello world measure, right? Because I didn't prepare for this, so I don't want to do something where I'm shooting myself in the foot. I hope you will forgive me.
Yeah, Mike also wishes that you add a comment to the TMD.
Oh yes, very good. Right. So let's do hello world, and let's call this hello world, right? So hopefully the syntax is self-explanatory, right? I'm defining a measure. I'm inside my info table. The measure name is hello world, and here I'm using DAX, right? And double quote hello world. That is basically a DAX string literal. And yes, to make to respond to Mike's point, Tyndall has first-class support for descriptions. Most object types in a tabular model support descriptions, which will surface, for instance, in Power BI Desktop or in Power BI Service, and which which some external tools actually leverage in order to auto-generate a model documentation, right? There's Mark's model documenter as an example. I think that people need to document their models more than they than they do today, right? So Tyndall actually makes it as simple as you can imagine to achieve that by providing very simple syntax. So if I put three forward slashes here, that basically introduces a description block for this particular measure, right? And then I can put anything in here. Again, I'm just going to do something really lame now. This is my, and this can be multi-line, right? So you can really go for it here and describe the whole thing. And so there we go. If I now save that and go here, I can see I've got this change, right? Look at this, right? So this is, you know, this is the new world, right? This is a really neat and clean diff, which shows me precisely what I've done. I've made an addition to this table. There's no noise, nothing else, right? Just what matters. And so let me just stage that. Let me also create a new branch because that's good practice. So let's call this Tool Talk demo, because why not? And I really hope I've got my credentials in here. I may not. Right. Okay. Oh, yeah, of course. I don't have a right. So commit message would be so edit hello world measure. Right, there we go. So commit message. Right, so I got that, and now fingers crossed. Oh no, perfect. Actually, yes, my account is linked to my Windows, so I don't have to get worried about entering passwords here. All good. Sorry, I should have kept that internal. And so cool. So here we go. So this is my project, and it will now tell me that it's detected a new branch, right? So it asked me to create a pull request for that. I've got my environments linked to branches. So if I push something into UAT, that would make it, well, that would put it into the UAT environment. And I've wired this up using best practices so that anytime a pull request is created or modified, a deployment into my development environment is automatically generated, right? So if I go create here, everything else happens automatically. There we go. I've got a new build queued. So this is just firing up pbi-tools, and it's ultimately going to deserialize my Tyndall model, and it's going to send it across into my Power BI workspace, which we're going to see in a second. Whilst we wait here, let me go there already. So this is that, and then I'm going for Tyndall demo. So this is the one we're expecting to update in a second, but obviously right now it won't have the hello world measure because I just created that. So let's just give it a minute to initialize. Sorry. Right, here we go. So this is where the magic happens. pbi-tools deploy is being invoked now. I haven't, unfortunately, this is running on a Windows build agent rather than Linux, so it's slightly slower, but this is only because it's currently a private build of pbi-tools. Ultimately, obviously, it's going to be a Docker image like all other pbi-tools releases, and it's going to be much faster to execute. All right, so we've got a connection to our XMLA endpoint. We're replacing parameters, and it's then going to do a refresh, which is actually automatic. So that should, there we go. We're already done. So if I go to my workspace now, I've got a report linked to the dev. I've got a report linked to the dev model, and we can already see, just looking at my metadata here, this is now, right? This is 21st of March. And this is my local time, right? So, and we can also see that this come from the, this has been deployed from a pull request, specifically pull request number 13, right? If I go back here and go to repos and pull requests, I've got this one, and look at that, this is 13, right? So this is actually, you know, how we're injecting deployment metadata right into the model for full visibility in terms of what's going on in your tenant, right? Something I'm always preaching, because that's something I feel very strongly about. But let's make sure we can actually see the one addition I made. Look at this, I've got hello world. And now look at that, I'm hovering over, right? I'm very, I'm very excited. I'm hovering over this. And look what's going on here. I've got my description, and including a line break, right? So I decided to put a line break into my Timdo document. Power BI service even honors that. And obviously, just to finish the demo, if I then put hello world, there we go. So now hello world works. So yeah, so this is end to end, and hopefully you know, gives you a good idea of where things are going to be very soon. Once you're all able, you know, to read some more documentation about it, and most importantly, either use this, you know, with tablet editor and pbi-tools, or build your own applications using Tom. There are other things will be happening, but I'm going to get in trouble if I talk about that.
Oh, I think you've shown so much already. Fantastic.
Any more questions?
Yeah, there were some, like there are lots of comments this time, so I have to go through it. So Santana Lakshmi wishes some more demos, but yeah, I think they will come. But you can also follow Matthias' blog or my YouTube channel. We've done some talks together, and I think we'll do more in the future. The Power BI tools are very well documented. Even if this is not Power BI tools, it's a Microsoft feature, but it's yeah, interesting how the language, like different languages from the community, merge into one official language. And then there was a question from Donald about Visual Studio integration. Do you know anything about this? So I prefer Tabular Editor to Visual Studio, but some people.
Well, so I talked about VS Code, right? And VS Code extension being worked on. And in fact, I've got a very sort of rough early version of that running already, as you can see, already giving us some nice color coding now. I'm not aware that anything relating big Visual Studio, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, is planned.
And also Azure Analysis Services was also a question from Donald.
Yeah, support. So this is completely agnostic. That works for Power BI as well as AAS. Because remember, technically this is not a Power BI feature. Technically this is Tom, right? The tabular object model, which is the client library for all analysis services, including Azure Analysis Services.
Great. Then there was just not a question, but a use case from Andrea. Replace the summarize by, but it's already possible in Tabular Editor. Thanks, James, for the link. But I think bulk changes are always a use case for such code.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
tools.
obviously, you know, this is it's early days, and it's a very sort of foundational building block, right? I'm so keen to see, you know, what people come up with in terms of new ideas that build on top of that, right? So for instance, something like a global find and replace, what I think Andrea was alluding to, that will be possible because we're just talking about a bunch of text files scattered across some folders, right? And even things like, maybe maintaining snippets and inserting them as you build new models, right? Reusing definitions for tables or partitions or so, right? Reusing definitions for measures or calculation groups. It's literally copy paste of some text, right? I mean, you can use Notepad if you want to define a model moving forward, as long as you use some other tool to then deploy it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then lots of thanks, lots of appreciation, and I think Mike said the best. It's going to change the world. Yeah,
very good. Well, the world of Power BI, indeed. Yeah.
But the demo was very nice, actually, with all the comments and just the possibility to have one language. So when you compare where it comes from, one language for Power BI tools, one for tabular editor, and then you even had the conversion between them. You also coded this, and now Microsoft follows the community.
Oh, talking of conversion, so let me just show you one final thing, because that's also very exciting. Right, I can go either way, right? So what I've shown earlier was to convert from my Tyndall model into a BIM. I can go the other way, right? And it's as simple as saying convert and put the BIM file first, and then say, let's say model 2, right? And bam, that's it, right? Now I've got a new folder here, and it contains the full Tyndall representation of my BIM file, everything in there, right? So this is completely interchangeable back and forth. At the end of the day, it translates into the exact same in-memory model, right? And again, also something where hopefully people will come up with lots of unique, new, and innovative use cases.
Okay, and then one last question from Vijay. I don't really expect an answer actually, but when we can expect report level version control, like the other side. I also noticed it's already only the model here, but maybe this is one of the stuff you shouldn't talk about.
I can't say anything. But it's not the first time I hear that question.
Yeah,
in fact,
James admitted Power BI tools can do this. So in the unsupported world, it's already possible to version your reports. And I do it with the watch mode or just for bug changes and then save it. So it's possible, but it's not part of this language so far. Yeah, and also thanks from Donald, and also thank you to everyone for watching, Gregory, Andrea, Mike, Santana Lakshmi, Vijay, and all the others, lots of people today. It's very hard to scroll and go through all the comments, but hopefully I do not have forgotten any question. If I have done so, just ping fast, or otherwise thanks a lot, Matthias, and thanks also
sharing my
James.
Twitter handle just in case anyone wants to stay up to date with new announcements and all of that, because again, we're only just starting. It's just been a few days.
Great. Yeah, thanks for showing us such fresh, brand new stuff. And I hope this was a good birthday present for you, James.
This is a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me, guys.
Yeah.
Well, it was great having you here.
Thank you for spontaneous presentation, and thanks, Matthias, for being here again. It's always so interesting to have you around, and
it's a very
neat professional demo with amazing stuff, actually.
All right.
Cool.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.